My name is John Dalrymple, or so I thought, until I was married by a Scottish pastor back in 2014 who informed me that I've been saying my last name wrong my entire life. He claimed that my last name, which is Scottish, is actually pronounced Dalrymple. I guess I shouldn't be surprised because I've heard my name mispronounced all my life. Dal-RYM-ple, Dalyrimple, Daredevil, Rumpelstiltskin. I've heard it all. And it's kind of frustrating when you have your name mispronounced by others, isn't it? Your name is very closely connected to who you are as a person. It's a very personal possession. And even worse than having your name mispronounced would be to have your name maligned or tarnished by someone. In the first line of the Lord's Prayer, after we address Our Father in heaven, Jesus says we are to pray, Hallowed be your name. Today I'd like to briefly explain the powerful impact that this phrase has on our prayers when we understand it and then when we incorporate it into our prayers. First of all, notice with me that this is not a declaration. It's actually a petition, a request. Jesus isn't saying God's name is hallowed, although that's true. He says, may your name be hallowed. As we begin, I want to answer a couple questions. Number one, what is God's name? And number two, what does it mean to hallow something? Now, as we've already mentioned, when we talk about someone's name, it's more than just a word. It's closely connected to who they are as a person. God's name is his identity, who he is. The Bible gives us specific names of God that describe his role or his attributes. So we have Yahweh, our shepherd, or Yahweh, our healer. In Exodus 34, God is speaking to Moses after God's people sinned by worshiping the golden calf. And God says to Moses in verse 14, you shall worship no other God, for the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. Jealousy doesn't just describe what God does, it describes who he is. Jealousy is part of his identity. And in the same way, Isaiah speaks of God's identity in Isaiah 57:15. He says, for thus says the one who is high and lifted up, who inhabits eternity, whose name is holy. There's an interesting connection between Isaiah 57 and Matthew 6, because the word hallowed means to sanctify or to make holy. So how does this work? Isaiah 57 says God's name is holy, but Matthew 6 says, hallowed be your name, or may God's name be made holy. So if God is holy, then how do we make his name holy? I want to take you to one more important passage that I think helps us with the answer. At the end of Leviticus chapter 22, God is giving these instructions for acceptable offerings, offerings that are holy, that are set apart without any blemish or spot. Leviticus 22, verse 31, so you shall keep my commandments and do them. I am the Lord, and you shall not profane my holy name, that I may be sanctified, made holy among the people of Israel. In other words, you make God's name holy by keeping his commandments. You make his name holy by displaying his holiness in your life. So when we pray for God's name to be hallowed, to be made holy, we're praying on a global scale, but also on a really personal scale. We're praying that God's holiness is displayed through our obedience to him. Now, if that feels like a heavy weight of responsibility, let me read for you the end of Leviticus 22. He says, don't profane my holy name, that I may be sanctified among the people of Israel. And then he finishes with these words, I am Yahweh who sanctifies you, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Yahweh. So take courage. The one who brought you out of slavery to sin is the one who's continuing that work of making you holy like himself. He is displaying his holiness in us by making us holy like himself. So when you pray, hallowed be your name, pray that God would continue to sanctify you and that you would obey him so that his holiness would be displayed for all the world to see. May God truly be seen as holy.